Hi there, my name's Brittany. I'm the owner of Out of the Woods Design, and today I'm going to show you how to make your embroidery round. Okay, so we will start by going over everything that has come in your kit and then some things that you might want to grab from home just to make it a little bit easier. So in your kit, you will have gotten your round, your material that you selected, so either black, white, or buffalo plaid, your stencil that you've selected. So today I went with Home Sweet Home. Your selected paint colors, and some painting sponges. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is open your material and separate your round. So it comes in the outside piece that has the device to tighten it, and the inside. So we're going to take the inside and just put it off to the side for now. And then take your material. Now you might want to iron this. I'm not going to for the video, so wish me luck. No, you should be fine. So just place that over the outside, and then you want to take the inside piece and set that in there. So the reason I don't iron is because now I'm going to pull this tight. So once you've got it in, you just start pulling it tight around the edges, and it'll kind of pull out the crease that was in there from having it folded, and that'll come out over time as well. So pull it nice and tight. There we go. So now we're gonna take that and flip it over, and that part that tightens, you're going to want to make sure that's nice and tight so it doesn't pull out in the future. So there's a little bolt. So just hold that, tighten it. Perfect. So you can do this after you've painted. I just like to do it before, so then I know where everything is so I can center everything really well. But you can do that after. So that's all set up. I'm going to turn it so that it's facing you. So obviously you want to have the device to tighten it right at the top. And then we're going to put your stencil on. So I just kind of eyeball this. You can obviously measure. So this is where your measuring tape would come in handy. So you can kind of measure from the outside of the ring to the stencil. So that's about 1.5. 1.5, perfect. So there's two ways you can do this. You can either just remove the backing of the stencil, place it on, or you can get it lined up. This is the way I like to do it just because I like to have it lined up where I want it. So line it up, put your hand on the stencil, and then there's 3 layers to the stencil. So there's a masking tape on the top, and then your stencil in between, and then a backing. So the backing's got a bit of a grid on it. So right now we're going to want to separate the backing from the stencil like that. Your stencil is going to be a blue material. So, and your backing white. So you want to tuck the backing underneath and stick the stencil to the material there. Perfect. So once that's stuck on there, what we're going to do is flip the stencil right over, kind of hold it down there, and then we're going to take the backing off like this. As you're doing that, you want to make sure that none of the stencil is stuck to the backing. If it is, it can rip. So just be careful of that. Or none of the centers have gotten stuck to the backing. So we'll just put that there. Perfect. So now you'll want to take some kind of card, like a gift card or a points card, something like that. And we're going to use that as a squeegee. So the way I do it is I go corner to corner all the way across. Just like that. And then from where you've squeegeed, so the center, all the way out. And you just want to make sure it's pushed down really well so that it sticks to the material. So now this part is a little bit more tough. We want to take that masking tape off the top. So you gotta kind of get it started with your fingernail, and then with the side of your thumb, you just kind of rub, and it'll separate the masking tape from the stencil. So I like to get it going all the way across the top here. Like that. And then that way, as you're pulling the tape off, you can see if anything's lifting or if the stencil's ripping. So here we go. And you might have to just hold it down with your hand a little bit, or what you can do is grab that card that we used as a squeegee and kind of hold it down as you're pulling that back. I chose a tough one with all these little pieces of the vine here, so you just kind of take your time, play with it. The biggest thing here is you just want to make sure that you're not going to rip the stencil or take up any of the centers and then lose them. So once we're done taking this off, we'll just double check and make sure that there's no centers left on the backing or on the masking tape. And if you do rip your stencil while you're doing this, it's okay. Just kind of put the tape back down and just work with it a little bit more. So don't freak out, don't panic if it happens. It is fixable. Pretty much everything is fixable when you're doing this, except if you paint too thick. So when we get to that part, you'll listen closely. So that's good. So what you can do now, if you want, is take pieces of this masking tape and just put it anywhere where you're going to be painting is close to the edge, so you're not painting outside of the stencil. Mine really doesn't need it, but I'll do it just to show you. Okay, so now it's kind of a good time to think about your colors. So you want to choose contrasting colors. So I actually grabbed one that is not going to be contrasting, so that's good. So if I were painting on white, I would have used a navy, but we're using a black material. So I'm going to get rid of that, and we're going to grab a different color. We'll use this one here. All right, so yeah, you can kind of plan out what you want to do and what colors you want, and then we can get painting. So like I said, this is the part that can get messed up. So be very, very careful. We want to do very, very thin coats. I generally do 2 coats, but you can do 3. I find doing 2 coats, it kind of gives it like a screen printed look. If you do 3 coats, it's more of a solid look. So if you're painting on your table and you want to protect it and you don't have a tablecloth down, you can put this underneath here, just in case it goes through the material. I'm going to tighten that up again. It kind of got loosened. There we go. All right, so you'll want to use your makeup sponge. Now the trick with this is you want to dab up and down. You don't want to rub, and you want to dip it in and then kind of rub the paint off on the side. So your sponge is damp but not wet. So you can see that there. And the way I like to do it when I start, I like to start where I'm not actually going to be painting. So where the stencil is solid, and get most of the paint off, and then I start painting. So if you do it too thick, it can bleed through and under the stencil onto the material that you don't want to be painting, which that's not a nice look. So you can see my first coat is very, very, very light. And that's fine. It's going to darken up with each coat. So some people, for the material, they like to do 3 coats, sometimes even 4, I have seen. But like I said, I normally like to do 2 for more of like a screen printed look, but it totally depends what you're going for and what kind of look you want. So totally up to you. That's the beauty of it. It's your project. It's hanging in your house, not mine. Unless you're making me a gift, which that's nice. So just remember, light coats. If you do go too thick, you kind of want to go back and try to take it off, because when you're painting, you want to do even coats as well. So you don't obviously want like a big blob in one area and then thinner in another area. The fun thing with these is you can actually stain the round as well. I'll probably do future videos where I can show you how to get funky, but for the tutorial video, I figured we'll just go basic, and once you do a few of them and you become a pro, then we can go crazy. And the fun thing about these is they can be swapped out. So you need one round and then you can swap out the material for like summer, Christmas, general, Easter, you know. Options are endless, which is fun. All right, so that's good for the first coat. So you can see, I'm just gonna show you how thin it is. You can see that there. So obviously I wouldn't leave it at one coat. We'll keep going. That's another thing I wanted to mention is don't push too hard when you're dabbing, because that can push a lot of the paint out of the sponge as well and make it bleed. So just nice light dabs, and you don't want to be rubbing like that. And for the sake of the video, for the second and third coat, I'm speed it up for you so you don't have to watch. But I just want to get the first coat done and show you kind of how it looks and show you that it, you know, it's not going to be solid for the first coat. So don't freak out if yours looks the same, because that's how it's supposed to look. And then you won't get nasty bleeds and your embroidery round will look beautiful. Perfect. So I'll just show you there. That's the first coat with all of the colors. So you can see that it's very, very light. It will take a couple more coats to cover. So for the sake of the video, we're just going to speed it up. And then when we're all done, we'll come back and I'll show you the finished product. All right. Okay, so we're all done painting. I did 3 coats. It's pretty dry. It's still a little bit damp in some areas, but if you're doing this at home, obviously wait till it's completely dry, because if you're going to take the stencil off and it falls and it touches the material, then it's really hard to fix. You can't get it out of the material, so just wait till you're nice and dry at home. For the sake of the video, I'm just gonna go ahead and take the stencil off. So when you're taking the stencil off, and also when you're removing it, take all your paint out of the way. I've also already cleaned my hands. So before you take your stencil off, you're gonna wanna make sure that you clean your hands so that when you're touching the material, you're not transferring paint onto there. Yeah, so when you take your stencil off, there's still gonna be all the little centers left in there. So that's totally fine, that's normal. You're just gonna have to go back and take them out. So that's what your little toothpicks are for. Or I myself use tweezers. If you have some tweezers at home, you can use those as well. All right, so here we go. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean with the centers. So you can see there, all the little pieces are still left inside. So like I said, you can use your toothpick. I'm going to use my tweezers. So I have these pointy little tweezers, which I find really handy. But when I first started, I just used regular tweezers. So if you have those, that's totally fine. Or honestly, if it's dry, you can just use your fingers. I'm just using these to be careful because it's still a bit wet. So if you did get a bit of bleeding, you can try to go back and smooth it out. If you have like a fine paintbrush, you can kind of go back and try to smooth it out. But hopefully if you followed my instructions, you don't have any bleeding. I'll show you when I'm all done taking these off that it is possible to get nice smooth lines as long as you're painting thin. So hopefully you did that and it turned out perfect for you. All right, I don't want you to have to watch this whole thing. So I'm just gonna go ahead to the next step. So obviously we need to remove the excess material. So I like to just make sure that it's still pulled nice and tight, because with all that dabbing, you could have loosened it a little bit. So pulled nice and tight, and you're gonna wanna grab a pair of scissors and just cut the excess off. So I like to leave just a little bit, because it's going to be on the wall. You're not going to notice it. A little bit, just so you can pull it tight if it ever loosens. And that would just make it easier to, if you're taking this out to change it out for like another seasonal stencil, then to put it back in. If it's a little bit bigger, makes it a little easier. Because if it's cut right to the round, it makes it a little harder. There we go. So perfect. Obviously you would want to take all your little pieces out, but I'm not going to make you watch that. So there you go. I hope you love your new embroidery round. We'll see you back for next season. Thank you.